Welcome back to Women of the Way. Today, for Vocab Reset, we are looking at the word love. Now, it just so happens to be Valentine's Day. That was mostly coincidental, but I figured it would be kind of fun anyhow. It fits in with where we are in our salvation study, so I really wanted to do this before we continued with that. Now, if you look up love using one of the resources, Blue Letter Bible is something I'm still getting familiar with, but if you look it up there, it'll tell you there are 20 Hebrew words and 20 Greek words that are translated to the English word love. We're not going to go through 40 words, but you'll see if you look at them that they're kind of in families. So we're going to focus on one Hebrew word and 4 Greek words, and even the Greek words, they're kind of related. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our Hebrew word for love, I couldn't really figure out how to say correctly, but it's all right because you're enjoying laughing at me with these, right? So I'm trying to say it ahav. Yes? No? Maybe? So it's used 212 times, and its definition is really simple. It's to have affection for, which could be in a sexual or otherwise kind of context. And Strong's Concordance simply says to love. So very simple, not really helpful if you're wanting to know what love is. So that's why we're not going to stop here. An example of how it's used is, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And that's Deuteronomy 6:5. So clearly, it's an important word that we really want to understand because this is the first and greatest commandment, right? So let's go ahead and move forward to our Greek words and see if we can learn a bit more that will help us out. So the first word we have is agape, probably one that you've heard. And we're going to look at its brother, sister word in a minute. So agape is used 116 times. And it comes from G25, which is the word we're going to look at next. And it means love. That is affection or benevolence. Now, benevolence is an English word that we don't really use anymore, but it just means goodwill, a disposition toward goodwill. Specifically, plural, a love feast. So that's the Strong's Dictionary definition. I really like what the Helps Word Studies adds for this word, which is that this love, agape love, is love which centers in moral preference. So in English, when we use the word love, we think more of an affection that's emotional. And that's not what this is. This is centered in moral preference. And as we continue, we're going to keep seeing this recurrence of the will. It's something we're choosing, preferring. Not that there isn't a sense of affection. You'll see that too. But we want to really see that this love is grounded in moral preference. So let's look at an example. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. So this is Jesus explaining to us the relationship between this moral preference for him and obedience to what he commands, to his word. And this is John 15:10. All right, so now let's look at G25, considering agape comes from that. So this word is agapao, something like that. It's used 142 times, and it means to love in a social or moral sense. And it tells us, compare with this other word for love, which we're also going to look at. But first, I just want to look at the part of the G5368 words definition. It gets complicated, I'm telling you. That is actually helping us to understand what agapao means. So it says that it embraces especially the judgment and the deliberate assent of the will as a matter of principle, duty, and propriety. So here again, we're seeing the deliberate assent of the will. Now, when you think of love, is that what you think of? I am deliberately assenting my will. I am preferring this moral principle. That's not usually what we think of when we think of love. But this is the love God is commanding. So we probably want to start thinking of it that way. Now, again, the Helps Word Studies is informative here. So it says properly to prefer. So you see the relationship with agape. to love, for the believer preferring to live through Christ. And they reference 1 John 4, 9 and 10, i.e. embracing God's will, choosing his choices, and obeying them through his power. And I just want to point out all of this, there's this sense of delight. There's this sense of affection in it. It's not something I'm doing in this martyrdom, oh, woe is me. This is something I'm delighting in. And we'll, again, as we continue, we'll see why. Okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So an example. Now this word for love is the parallel, if you will, to the Hebrew word. And I wanted to show that by using the New Testament version of the Old Testament command. So here Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And that's in Mark 12:30. So this is the Greek word that Christ used to represent the Hebrew word that had not much in its definition to go on. So we can treat them as synonyms, I would say, if he used it that way. All right, so let's go to G5368 since we're told, hey, you should compare these two words. Let's do it. So this word is phileo. Well, that's how I say it. You can say it however you want. It's used 248 times, and this is more of this friendship, affection kind of love. And in Matthew 10:37, Jesus used this word when he was saying, he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And I'll have to tell you, we focused on this verse a lot, and I hadn't actually caught that this was the word for love that was used in this verse. So I learned something new in looking at this time. It's always fun. So the related word to phileo is Philadelphia, another word that you probably have heard. And even though it's used only 6 times, again, it's an important word, and it's important for us to understand what it means, how it relates to agape and agapao. So this is brotherly love, love of Christian brethren, and this is one of my most favorite verses, and I wanted to use it for this because it uses Philadelphia. The word I can say, I still messed up. It's all right. So it uses Philadelphia together with agape to help us kind of see the relationship. So here Peter says, since you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit. You know, that sounds an awful lot like what we were just looking at and talking about. In sincere love of the brethren, now love of the brethren, that's Philadelphia, love agape one another fervently with a pure heart. So when we walk in obedience to the truth, our hearts are purified, our souls are purified, so that our love is now genuine. And this is what enables us to obey God's command to love one another with his love, with his agape love. Don't worry, I won't go off on that. I really love that verse. I think there's so much in there for us to learn. English. All right. So instead of going to the website, you guys know how to do that now. So go there on your own, read all the things he has to say. I just wanted to pull out a few little snippets here and there. So he talks about love as a verb and love as a noun. And we will look a little bit at both. So at each. There you go. In a general sense, to be pleased with. To regard with affection on account of some qualities which excite pleasing sensations or desire of gratification. So I'd say that's kind of what we think of when we think of love. It's I moved with affection because I see something that I think is pleasurable or looks desirable to me. But don't worry, he doesn't stop there. So he gives a list of examples, and then he says, in short, we love whatever gives us pleasure and delight, whether animal or intellectual. And if our hearts are right, now remember, Peter just told us how we get our hearts right. That's important. We love God above all things. Why? As the sum of all excellence and all the attributes which can communicate happiness to intelligent beings. So if our hearts are right, that means we see the truth, which means we see God as he is to the extent that we're able, and we are going to be moved by his excellence, by who he is, his nature. That's what motivates our love. It's not forced. In other words, the Christian loves God. I love this. Okay, listen, there's 3 parts to this. The Christian loves God with the love of complacency in his attributes. That means I am at peace. I am at rest. I have this perfect confidence in who God is. And the love of benevolence towards the interest of his kingdom. Remember, we said that benevolence is goodwill. I have goodwill towards the interest of God's kingdom. And the love of gratitude for favors received. This is a comprehensive love. Now, love as a noun, the love of God is the first duty of man. And this springs from just, correct, accurate, views of his attributes or excellencies of character, which afford the highest delight to the sanctified heart. The regenerated heart that knows God is going to be moved by the character of God. That is love. Esteem and reverence constitute ingredients in this affection, and a fear of offending him is its inseparable effect. I think that just makes pretty plain sense if you think about it. All right, so the sum up, as we like to do, this is based on our pursuit of character, POC definition. So taking everything together, love is genuine affection for another by a deliberate act of will and moral clarity as a matter of principle. I hope that after having gone through all the definitions we just did, that you will see how we came up with that definition. If you want to read more, I would point you to The Pursuit Is, which is part 4 of the Is series. It's going to dig into more words than just love, but love's up towards the top, and it's okay. You can read the whole thing. It's fine. It's helpful. So I hope that helped in your understanding of what love is on this lovely Valentine's Day, and we will see you back here next time.
All I want is your wish.